Welcome to another episode of Double J's List. Today I'm going to be doing a pretty full review here of my 2023 Jeep Wrangler 4xe Willys. That's Willys, not Willys. You'll have to talk about that in other one videos. Anyway, we're going to go and take a look at some of the things that I really like and don't like about it, and just driving experience, all sorts of just ownership experience, really. So first thing I want to point out is the juxtaposition of this vehicle is absolutely ridiculous if you think about it. So here we are, a very blocky off-roader. It's not particularly an efficient vehicle in general. However, at the same time, it's a plug-in electric. I've had this now for about a month and a half. I've got about 15, almost 1,600 miles on it already, and I am still on the original tank of fuel from the car dealership. So it's getting down below a quarter tank, but I use the electric so much that I almost use, I use very little gas. So in my life, this has worked out really, really well. Generally, forms of electrification are the more environmentally sound way of operating a vehicle, only because it produces so much less greenhouse gases going to the atmosphere. One of the things that I've done to this is I was able to get a soft top for this off Facebook Marketplace, off of a person who had purchased it for his JK, which is the previous generation of Wrangler, and it turned out that this soft top was actually for the JL, the current generation of Wrangler. Now if you take a look at this soft top, this is called the Best Top Trek Top. This has like a fastback look in the back, and this is the way I really like operating it. I like keeping the part on the top, the canopy I guess you would call it. Some folks call this safari mode. And then I took out the side windows and back windows, so it gives this nice open air feeling in the back. If you get a really nice day, you lower the windows and then you use the Sunrider over the front two seats and it folds open. Fortunately, one shortcoming of this top is it always keeps the rear seats covered, even in its fully open mode. However, that's not necessarily a bad thing because my kids sit back there and I don't want them baking in the sun anyway. So I was able to find this for a mere $400, which is a fraction of what it costs brand new from Best Top, and it's in like new condition. So this was a really cool score. So the only bad thing about this is that when you take off the hardtop, it takes up a significant amount of real estate in your garage, as you can see here, and it becomes a table and a place to store things, and just generally takes up space. One of the projects I want to take on, some folks have made a rack that you can put it up on its back, so it takes up a little less space. You can wheel it around and take up a little less space in your garage, but that's what we got going on right now. It's a shortcoming of putting a soft top on if your Jeep came with the hard top. So let's go ahead and get behind the wheel and we'll talk more about how this thing drives. All right, now I'm behind the wheel of my Wrangler 4xe. First, I'm going to back out of my driveway here. So this has 3 modes. It has electric, which forces it to run primarily in all electric almost all the time. Only time it won't is if you floor it and it requests a little bit more power, then it brings on the gas engine. Or if you've been running on electric for many, many days, it will then kick on the gas engine just to basically refresh the fluids, make sure the oil is moving around, gets the gas through the system, that sort of thing. It'll run for a few minutes. That's only happened to me once so far in the 1,570 miles that I've put on this. So right now I'm in electric. You can also put it in hybrid, which will kick on the gas engine a little more often, and it'll automatically go into that mode when you run out of I had to do the Jeep wave to another Wrangler there. Fun aspect of Jeep ownership. But anyway, it'll run, yeah, or you can go to e-save mode, which will actually run the engine and charge up the battery. Now, let's talk about something really quick. The electrification of this vehicle, or how it has both electric and gas engines, is, at least from what I understand, pretty unique to any other hybrid in the industry, at least the Jeep 4xe system. So what it does is it has the turbo 4-cylinder, it has the ZF 8-speed transmission, just like the same 4-cylinder Wrangler that you can buy right now. The only difference is that in the area where the bell housing is that would normally contain a torque converter for an automatic. Instead, it's basically, that's the electric motor right there, and there's a clutch between the engine and that electric motor, so it disengages the engine from the transmission, and now it's primarily running on electric via that electric motor through the transmission. One thing that makes this also really unique is it uses the gears in the transmission in electric mode. Most electric vehicles, or at least anything that's electrified, doesn't run through the transmission, and you just get one gear ratio, like my Bolt that I've done a bunch of videos on. Now, this actually shifts through gears. Like right now, one of the cool features of this gear cluster, or this gauge cluster, is you can tell it, it'll not only tell you that you're in D for drive, but you're also what gear the transmission is actually in right now. Right now, it's telling me it just came to a stop. It shifted down to 1. It got into 4th gear. Just driving through there, got up to about 40 miles an hour. The top gear it seems to get into in electric mode is 6th. When the gas engine comes on, it then uses all 8 gears. I don't know why. It's just the way it seems to work. Like right now, I'm in 1st and shift to 2nd. Don't even feel it. 3rd is almost there. Right there, seamless. 4th. And 50 miles an hour, 4th. Yeah, so like I said, and then it just dropped into 5th. Okay, so, and then it dropped into 6th. So you don't even feel it, you don't even know what's going on. It took me a few days to realize that's what was going on, and like, oh, electric mode, it's using a transmission, which is super strange, but it is what it is. The other part of the electrification, as like an accessory in the belt drive, it's got an extra wide serpentine belt, and then it's got another electric motor right there. So what that does is it disengages the clutch when you're like stopped or you're driving around, and you can still charge the battery but not have to drive forward anywhere. So that's more of a like something that you can charge the battery rather than power, but it does actually go work the other way and then provide power when you're looking for maximum power. Now, one of the weird offshoots of this, not only is this super efficient in electric mode, and you can drive for pennies compared to what it costs on gas in this all electric mode. I've seen as low as a full charge being 19 miles. I've seen a full charge saying 26 miles. All depends on temperature and what type of driving that I'm doing. If I'm doing a lot of highway miles, it seems to drop down and knows that I'm doing that. And then when I'm doing a city, it brings up the range. It also the outside temperature, like if I've been doing a lot of highway and it's cold out, that's when I see like 19 miles. Lately it's been pretty warm and I've been driving a lot of city streets. I was seeing 26 miles to a full charge. So, that's one of the things that varies about all electrics. It says that, the EPA rates something as X number of miles, but you don't always get that X number of miles. Sometimes you get a little bit more, sometimes you get a little bit less. It all depends on a lot of different factors, primarily weather and driving conditions. So, anyway, right now it says I've got 89% battery and I've got 21 miles left. So I'm going about 50, 55. Yeah, and that's just the way it is. It doesn't like that because I'm going a little bit too fast. The slower you go, the more you get out of these batteries in these cars. It's not like a gas engine where highway gears it way down, and then that's that. So another interesting thing about this, though, is if you go into hybrid mode and you go and do a good pull, is this thing's fast. Okay, when it uses both engine motors, it's an absolute rocket. I found a video somewhere, I think it was on TikTok, that did 0 to 60 in just under 5 seconds. So you're talking 0 to 60 in the 4s in a Jeep Wrangler that actually is, in quotation marks, better for the environment than a normal Wrangler. Now, something I want to get into, and I think I'm going to get into this a little bit deeper on another video, is that, well, what exactly is the more environmentally sound vehicle to be driving right now? So, is it a plug-in hybrid, or is it a full electric? Now, there's arguments that go in both directions, obviously. So, the primary being like a full electric never burns any gas, and that's what's really the best for the environment. The other argument would be that, well, you have to do a lot of mining for a lot of precious materials and destroy a lot of beautiful land in order to get that material for that giant battery in the full electric, whereas if you have a plug-in hybrid, it only gets like 25 miles or whatever of range, like this. It's a much smaller battery, and you primarily get most of your driving done, like I think I've proven, right? Oh, here's another Wrangler. We got to wave, right? Bye. Anyway, boy, after you buy one of these things, by the way, you find out how many of these cars are on the road, because you're always looking, and you got to make sure you want to wave. You don't want to be rude. But anyway, so yeah, what exactly is the more environmentally sound choice to make? I don't know. I want to do some digging on that and try to figure it out for myself. But right now, for me, not only is it, you know, a relatively smaller battery than a full electric vehicle, it's extraordinarily capable. So when we get these crazy snowstorms in Buffalo that we've been getting for the past few years, where there's 5 feet of snow, like, this will get me to work, because it's an incredibly capable, probably the most capable off-road vehicle I've ever owned, including my old Frontier. It's just absolutely crazy. Now, let's talk about some of the driving dynamics while I'm on some curves here. So, it doesn't handle like a sports car. However, for what it is, it handles quite well. Now, this has a live axle in the front, live axle in the back, coil springs, allows for a lot of articulation. This is the Willys or Willys trim. So it's kind of like a half step to the Rubicon. It's got very similar suspension. It just doesn't have the sway bars that that disconnect, and the locking differentials. Instead, it's got a limited slip rear differential. But it's lifted a little bit. When I park next to like a Wrangler Sport, this is significantly higher than that. So that makes me believe that indeed this is a lifted suspension. I don't have the actual specs to show that, but it does sure look taller. Also, the tires are a larger outer diameter too. Now, just because it has these suspension parts that don't make it a good sports car, so to speak, it's still really kind of fun and engaging to drive in its own really unique way. So the steering, the turn-in is actually kind of sharp, especially for an off-roader. Like, you turn the wheel and it just kind of bites right in. You're like, wow, that's not expected. Now, once it settles down in the quarter, it's kind of unstable and a little bit scary, because it's a big, high off the ground off-roader on mud terrain tires. But it's surprisingly easy to drive. Since there's so much space around the front wheels, it allows a lot more turning angle, and it makes it really easy to maneuver around parking lots. So, you know, when you go to pull in a parking spot, you turn the wheel, just doesn't turn enough, and then you got to back up and readjust and do it again. Not so much with the Wrangler. I was really surprised how, like, you'll turn the wheel and you're like, oh, and it just keeps turning, and then you get the angle perfect almost every single time. Versus like when I drive our family's Volkswagen Tiguan, that doesn't seem to turn enough, and I've had to adjust a number of times. This is really, really easy to maneuver around in tight situations. Much easier than I was expecting it to be. So the ride, it's firm, not as bad. Now, if you've driven in Wranglers that were older, like the YJ from the 80s and 90s, the TJ that ran from the 90s to the early 2000s, those were very bare bones and rustic Jeeps. I grew up driving a lot of those around, especially when I worked in the car business. Those were like the ones that were traded in all the time when I worked. Actually, the TJ was like the new Wrangler when I started. So, like I've said in the video of the things that I like and don't like video, this is like, you know, a luxury vehicle compared to those. That being said, compared to other modern vehicles, it's still it's got its drawbacks and things you need to adjust to. The dashboard and windshield are extremely close to you. It's very kind of old school feeling. It's different than what you're normally used to, and if you've driven pretty much any other car in the world, like a modern vehicle in the world. So I kind of like it. I like old school vehicles. One of my favorite vehicles was my old Rabbit GTI. That had a very straight up and down kind of windshield that was close to you, and this has that kind of feel. Windshields keep getting more and more raked for fuel economy and just, you know, wind noise reasons. But this is old school. The soft top, it creates a little more wind noise, than the hardtop. It almost sounds like there's like little air leaks over here where it pops open. But the other side of that is it comes off. So that's really cool. So, and it's much easier than the hardtop to deal with. So, with that being said, it's a pretty fun little vehicle. I like the fact that when I want it to be, it can be extremely quick. One weird little quirk that I saw in some of the groups is that if you want the full power of the gasoline engine, someone did some data logging and saw that the engine doesn't allow for full boost unless it's in at least four-wheel high or auto or just four-wheel part-time. So if you're in two-wheel drive, it doesn't give you full power. So you put it in you pop it back in four-wheel drive, gives you full boost. It is quick. I've only done a couple pulls, and it's not a really stable chassis to be rocketing off quickly in. So I don't use it that much. Plus, I'm cheap and I don't want to pay for gas. And yeah, so just a really, really interesting, funky, weird, but surprisingly easy to live with vehicle. You know, I've always kind of liked Jeeps, but I've never really owned one myself. And now that I've had it, you know, there's that goofy adage, you know, it's a Jeep thing you wouldn't understand. I think I'm starting to understand it a little bit more right now, and you know, it's just fun. It's just more interesting. Like, that's one of the problems that we've had is it's a lease, and I have other vehicles to drive around so I can keep the miles low and not go over on the miles. But I keep wanting to drive it because it does just a little bit of everything. Like, if I want a fun vehicle to take the top down and take the kids out and we go get ice cream or whatever, it's a great vehicle for that. It fits the whole family. It's cheap to run back and forth to work on electric. And if I want something I want to go take off fast in and have a good time, it does that too. So it's really interesting that this is a vehicle that does all sorts of crazy stuff, and it does it relatively well. If you want to find out more about this, now my experiences with the soft top, some of my thoughts about the hybrid drive, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so I get some more people viewing my videos, and I really appreciate that. If you have any ideas, any questions, any comments, do you own one of these? Do you have some of your own experiences that you want to share? Put them down in the comments section. I'd love to read them. I'll try to respond to them as quickly as I can. And thank you again for watching.